Good morning, Victories. Today we are looking at one of the most amazing miracles that Jesus ever performed. If you had to rate the amazingness of Jesus' miracles, which would you rate the highest? Maybe the feeding of the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes? Or maybe when he walked on water? Or maybe when he healed the man who the friends let through the roof? Well, I think that today's miracle is one of the most amazing. Not only did Jesus bring someone back from the dead, the actual dead, but that person was a young child and a girl. You'll remember that Jesus raised one other person from the dead. His name was Lazarus. He was an older man, and it was an amazing miracle. But Lazarus was important. He was a key member of his community, and he was a man, and we all know that men were more important than women in 0 AD. And he was Jesus' friend. The miracle we're looking at today was different. The person who had died was a little girl. In 0 AD, girls were not very important. Boys were much more important. Girls were so unimportant that they didn't even get to be educated. The Romans were so unimpressed with girls that if somebody gave birth to one, sometimes they would just take the baby girl out and leave them, abandon them to die. Thankfully, the Jews didn't do that. And that didn't happen to this little girl. In fact, this little girl was dearly loved by her parents. And her dad was a leader in the synagogue, which was the Jewish church. Now, the leaders of the synagogue were not generally Jesus fans when Jesus was around. They, along with the Pharisees, thought Jesus was a false prophet. They didn't agree with what he was teaching and the way he was gathering normal people as followers. He was just too different, and he made them uncomfortable. But Jairus was in an uncomfortable position. Jairus was the father of the little girl. He was the synagogue leader, and his friends and the other leaders thought that Jesus was a rebel and dangerous. But he could see the miracles he was performing. He saw the people Jesus healed and the power he held. And his beloved daughter was very sick. In the end, his love for his daughter won out, and he asked Jesus for help. So let's read it in our Bibles. Can you get your Bible out? Here's my Bible. And we're going to read it from Luke. Now, Luke is one of the Gospels, so it's in the New Testament. And you remember the first book in the New Testament is Matthew, then Mark, then Luke. Okay, so it's the third book in the New Testament. So it's quite a long way through the Bible. And it's chapter 8. Okay, and it's quite near the end of chapter 8. I'm going to read, the heading in my Bible says, Jesus raises a dead girl and heals a sick woman. And I'm going to miss out a bit in the reading today. So I'm going to start at verse 40 and then skip a bit. Okay, so it starts with, now when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house, because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. Now I'm going to skip to verse 49. While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, he said. Don't bother the teacher anymore. Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, don't be afraid, just believe, and she will be healed. When he arrived at the house of Jairus, he didn't let anyone go in with him except for Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. Stop wailing, Jesus said. She's not dead, but asleep. They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said, my child, get up. Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astonished, but he ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. Isn't that amazing? There is so much that we can learn from this story, but I want to focus on the little girl. She was so unimportant that we don't even know her name, but she was quite a special person. There aren't many people who have died, actually died, and come back to life again, are there? She is one of the very few people who found out what it's like on the other side of death. I wonder how she described it. We don't know exactly what happens when we die. We don't know what heaven is like, but what we do know is that God has promised that when we die, everyone who is in his family will go to live with him. So although we don't know what heaven's like, we do know that God is there. I like to think of death as a little bit like a doorway into another dimension that exists very really alongside the one that we know and live in. And a doorway from this life on earth connects it with the life in the place where God lives. So let's look at some doors. I'm going to show you some doors, all right? And you've got to see if you can tell me whose doors they are. So I wonder what the doorway to heaven looks like. You got any ideas? Of course we don't really know, but I reckon it will be kind of shiny and made out of gold or silver. And I thought we should make one. Now make a door, any kind of door that you like that represents heaven's doorway to you. So you'll need some cardboard, an old box or something would be perfect. You'll need some sellotape and you need some tin foil. Like this, tin foil from the kitchen. You are going to need quite a lot, so check with your parents that that's okay. And some scissors. And the thing is that if you cut tin foil too much with scissors, it makes the scissors blunt. So try not to cut it too much, all right? Otherwise we'll get into trouble. Okay, so what I've got is I used a shoebox, okay? And I took the lid off and I covered the lid with tin foil, and that's going to be my base of my doorway. And then I got some insides of toilet rolls and I connected two together with sellotape like that. And I got a box which is going to be the top, and I'm going to put my two sets of toilet rolls a bit like Corinthian columns and make the doorway a bit like that, okay? And I will show you how to do it. So you want your silver foil to wrap around your cylinder, okay? And then I was going to decorate it, and what you need is a bluntish pencil. And tin foil is really fun because you can make a pattern on the wrong side that then comes out on the other side. So take the non-shiny side of the tin foil, and if you can, lean on some cardboard, because then you can make a little indentation in your tin foil. And I just made patterns to go around the column. So which way is it going? It's going that way around, so I'll put the patterns across here. So we can do some zigzags. Just draw them on the tin foil and then go over them again. So you've drawn them nice and hard with your blunt pencil on the tin foil. Like that. Can you see it? then draw something else, so maybe a wavy line. So I'm still drawing my patterns, drawing maybe some circles in a row, going over them several times so that you make nice indentations in the silver foil, but you don't make a hole. So that's why you want a blunt pencil, really, so that you don't make a hole, but you press really hard into the tin foil. And then I've got a whole lot of patterns like that. And then if you look on the other side, you can see it's slightly sticking out as a pattern. So then I will stick that onto my column like this. A little bit of sellotape. And I've got 2 of these columns. I made one earlier, and I've got a little box to go across the top. Just sellotape it around like that, nice and tight. So you've got a little bit of tin foil at each end, but not too much because we're going to tuck that in. Sellotape the join like that, and then you can just tuck the tin foil in over the ends. There we go. Now I've got my column. I've got another column that I made earlier, and there's my box that goes across the top of the columns, and I wrote welcome on the box, but you know, you have to write it backwards because you turn the tin foil over. So if you can write welcome backwards, then give it a go. Otherwise, do some good patterns. Now what I'm doing is I'm just cutting a doorway shape out of my box. So I've cut up one side about the length of my column, like that, and then I'm going to cut along the top so that hopefully the doorway will open. Quite hard because I've got quite a thick cardboard. Now I'm going to need a little bit of sellotape down the edges there, and I'm going to need to bend it so that it opens. I need a little bit more at the bottom here. There we go. And there I've got my doorway. I'm going to stick the tin foil to the doorway and stick my columns on one on either side and the box along the top like that. So here I am, I've stuck my doorway on a mirror, and look, when I open the door, all I see is myself. Hello! You too can stick your doorway on a mirror like that. So once you've finished, if you stick your doorway on a mirror, when you open it, you'll just see yourself and your home reflected, because it's not time for you to pass through yet. But one day, hopefully a long time in the future, when you're quite old, when the door opens, God will be on the other side, welcoming you with open arms. That's amazing, isn't it, to think about? This little girl passed through this doorway from life on earth where she was sick and in pain to a life with God where there's no pain and no sickness. And she was with the person who loved her even more than her parents did, her Father in heaven. Most people would have been happy to stay there, and she probably was, but this little girl had only just got there when up pops Jesus, knocks on the earth side of the door and asks her to go back. Go back to where she was in pain and sickness. Can you imagine what it was like to be that little girl? She had just got to be with God, her Heavenly Father, and now she was being asked to go back. What would you have said? Well, this little girl did the bravest thing I think anyone has ever done. She trusted Jesus. She trusted Jesus to take her back to the pain and the suffering and the difficulties on earth. She put her hand in his and let him lead her back to earth. Wow. Would you have done that? Thankfully, you probably won't have to. It's very, very rare that Jesus brings someone back to life from death. It does happen, but not very often. But death itself can be a bit scary, can't it? I think it helps to think of it as a doorway. Most of the time, if the door opens, all we see is our earthly life reflected back at us. And that's because the doorway to God isn't yet open. It's not our time to go and live with him. But one day, it will open and we'll see God on the other side. And then we can go through with relief and joy because we know that we can trust God to take care of us, just like the little girl trusted Jesus to take care of her back on earth. So that's it for Virtual Victories this term. We hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great summer. And don't forget, you can join in with Holiday Bible Club. All you have to do is email to register. And the email is hbc2020@wycliffe-church.org.uk. Let your parents know that you want to go because the email address is in all of their email communications that they've had. So have a lovely summer and we'll see you again in September. Bye.